Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Ruby the Elite. And we are going to continue on the beautification of our 2007 Yamaha Morphous. You can see I've got some nice new Michelin rubber on these Yamaha rims. But we're going to do some cleaning up of the rims using the Quick Glow that I've showed in many other videos. Works great. These little rust spots and stuff that are on the disc and on the rim itself, it makes quick work of them. Definitely a huge improvement. Here is the old rim and the new rim, as far as old and new being completed with the Quick Glow. We'll continue on to this one, but let me first show you how the other side came out. And the rim looks like brand spanking new now. Huge improvement. We'll continue on this one, which is our rear, and see how much nicer we can make that one look as well. Doing a very light scrub using a soft bristle brush, not to make any new marks. Alright, moving on to continuation of the cleaning underneath the bike. I had scrubbed, if you watched the first video on how dirty it was under here, I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and got almost all the dirt off. Oh, except on that shock. That's better. And you can definitely see a small amount on that steel, but for the most part I'm cleaning what I can get to. I mean, give me a break here, folks. There's stuff I can't reach, but everything I can I'm definitely detailing. And I just got done installing the front tire and rim. Make sure when you try to install this, or when you do install it, that you first remove the brake caliper off. Don't try to muscle and try to get this disc in it and get the tire installed at the same time, because you'll fail. Do it the right way, not the wrong way. We removed the rear fender. I guess good opportunity to clean it, since it probably won't get cleaned again since it's around the tire. But you can see it just slides right back in right here. And held on. But the rear tire is installed again. We're going to put the swing arm back on, get that all cleaned up. But first we're going to detail our exhaust. Since it's already off the bike, it's got a bunch of little nicks and scrapes and scratches on it. Let's make it look nice, since it's a good opportunity to. And after a couple of coats of that 2000 degree paint, made it look like brand spanking new again. I've used this 2000 degree paint on many of my bikes and it always works out well. So wiping things down under here, inspecting hoses, looking at everything as I put it all back together again. But I'm not going to get into detail of everything as far as what I have to install and in the order and all that. I've already showed you that on the first video, so I'm just giving you a quick synopsis as I install each piece on where they go. And if you want to know exactly screw for screw, again, view my first video. That'll show it there. Looks great under here though. Everything all wiped down. The exhaust back installed. Very easy to remove the exhaust. It's just a couple of bolts. So if you want to beautify yours, you're seeing what I had to do on mine. Let's move on to the front end though, because we are going to remove this front fairing. And the reason for that is so we can get to the coolant underneath. And there's just a couple of bolts, actually screws, that hold this front panel on. We're going to remove that first. This silver panel actually is held in place just with a couple of these rubber nubbies So giving a good pull, you can see, I'm not sure what the real name of those are. That's what I call them, rubber nubbies. Removing these 2 bolts next will allow us to remove our speedo. There's one plug that's right here that goes into the speedo that you have to undo. And once you do, this whole front thing will all come off in one piece. They're missing. What the heck, man? There's a couple of screws that are supposed to be one right there and there. Not a fan of missing screws, I must admit. Definitely, if you're going to take it apart, make sure you put everything back together the way it's supposed to. But those are what hold this on, so there was nothing holding this plastic piece on. So just by giving it a little bit of pressure, the whole thing will come off very simply. Alright, we're moving on to the turn signals, and this is also showing you how to replace your bulbs. So another thing off the list if needed. There's a couple of screws on each side, and then there's also a screw on the front in each side, and that will allow you to remove the turn signal housing, all the same screws. And then it gives you access to the socket, which you just turn the socket counterclockwise, and then when you do, it'll give you access to the bulb, as you can see. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the bulbs now, just so that they don't get accidentally broken when I remove this whole front fairing. And there you go. Now you know how to replace your turn signal bulbs. Very simple. From the front of the bike, if you look underneath it, you can see how much coolant is in the reserve tank. This is how the manufacturer wants you to check it. So keep that in mind. You can see mine's on low and pretty nasty looking. But this is what we're really under the bike for. There's 3 plastic screws that you have to remove in order to get this front plastic cover off. And you can see it just slides right off and held with those 3 plastic screws. And we'll go ahead and take this away. Now we have to remove this small fairing on each side of the bike, and there is 2 metal screws that are in the front, and then also there are a couple of screws along the floorboard. It will allow you to remove this fairing from each side, and again, all of the same type of screw. And we just did the same thing on this side. And then you can see it comes all off. Very simple. Keep those little metal insulation squares in place. Don't lose those. Now we've got a couple of long bolts there and a couple of nuts right here. And then also we've got a couple more screws at the top. After removing all those, on the sides of the bike we have a screw right here and also another one on the other side. And then we have some bolts that are holding this on both sides as well. You need to be very careful now that you have removed all those nuts and screws. Gently pull, and there is one connector right there that you have to take off. Then the whole fairing comes off in one piece. Very simple to remove it. And now you can see the nasty coolant that's at a low level. You can see stains, and it's definitely the wrong color. I don't want to put new coolant into this reserve tank or even siphon it out. I want to remove it, give it an awesome cleaning, And while I have that front fairing out, you can see it gives me the access to all the different hoses and clamps and everything underneath here for me to inspect, just to make sure everything looks okay before I go ahead and put that front fairing back on. As far as removing the reserve tank, you've got a bolt right there. You have the exit tube right here. And then you take the top off and the whole thing comes off. And there you go. I wanted to talk about how easy it is to remove that fairing and why people sidestep and not remove it, to take the time to look underneath, make sure everything's okay, to get the reserve tank off, get it all cleaned up, do it the right way. Just don't top off 13-year-old coolant or even siphon it out. Otherwise, you're just going to be putting that same nastiness through the whole system again. If you're going to do it right. It was very simple to remove that fairing. Dumping out the nasty, stinky, brown coolant that was in our reserve tank. There is no way I would have mixed this with new coolant. And even after I dump it out, you can see on the bottom there, it sat at the low for a long enough time to discolor it in that area. So we're going to go ahead, take this to the sink, and we're going to rinse it out. You could use some water, distilled water, along with some vinegar in it. Let it sit in there for, I don't know, I let mine sit for an hour or two. And it's just going to lightly clean out the inside. It won't hurt your radiator or any of your tubing or anything. The vinegar is very gentle. And then it's still, you can see as I pour it onto this white napkin, that it's still coming out brown. So I'll continue to rinse this over and over again until it comes out clear. Not a real big deal. Some of the inside is starting to clean up already. Just takes a bit of time and patience. All right, the evacuation of the nastiness has begun, or old coolant, as we see here. So we'll clean this radiator cap out real good. You can see beyond it in the hose. It's brown and nasty. We're going to put that cap gently on the top, though, where it came from, while we remove this bolt, because it's going to help to control how much of the flow comes out. And if you don't leave that cap on, just sitting on, it may shoot pretty much all over your floor. So it definitely helped control it for me. As you can see, as all the brown nastiness comes out, they say that might look yellow, but trust me, in front of me, you're going to see what it looks like in a clear bottle in a moment. But we're going to continue to run out all the old stuff. And keep in mind, all of the coolant is not going to initially come out. You'll see when we start to flush it, and we're going to use a combination of distilled water and vinegar mixed 50-50 in a 1-gallon jug, and keep on putting it through until it comes out looking nice. So we'll fill it up with this. We'll close that bleed screw up along with the bottom bolt, run the bike for a little while, and then evacuate it again. I wanted to show you too, I picked up this nice kit on Amazon. It's a bunch of crush washers. That way you're not being charged $3 or $4 for each one through Yamaha or Honda or whoever you have. I found these on Amazon for $10 for the whole box. So going back and forth, going back to getting the old coolant out and flushing it. And like I said, it's going to take some time. You need to be patient. Running that vinegar and water through, a whole gallon of it, That's what I did. I let the bike cool down, let all of it out, started it up, put more in, and kept on doing it until I cleaned out a gallon's worth. That might be overkill for you, but eventually it came out all clear and I could no longer tell there was anything nasty. This is the bleed screw right here that I was talking about. And you open that up slightly. I had it slightly open while running the bike, and you can hear some of the air coming out of it. So you know that it's getting that air that's trapped in there and allowing you to get coolant throughout the whole system. And that's running the water. That's just pure distilled water now in there. But let me show you what it looks like. 2 gallons ran, and that's what we ended up. That's the coolant that was in there, along with mixing of distilled water and vinegar. Nasty, I'm telling you, nasty. And now we're going to go ahead and top off our reserve tank. We let the bike run, and it took a little bit of the coolant out of this, which is normal. Now we're going to go ahead and fill this up to the very top limit, which it says full. Since we had already ran this, I had it between full and low, and it took it in after running it a while to below full. Now I'm just topping it off again. And once I get it to the full line, as you can see right there, I'm using Yamaha lube. Definitely recommended for the bike. Use what's recommended. And that should do it for the coolant. Okay, let's move on to removing this little access panel. And that will give us a direct view of our dipstick right there. We're going to change the oil next, so there's a few parts that we need. The first is this oil filter, which is going to be installed actually on the other side of the bike in this pretty yellow-orange color. Definitely not the color of what's coming out of the bike. I let the bike run for a little while, and the black, nasty gold Texas T is coming out of the bike. Definitely not going to make me a millionaire. We will get the rest of this out, and it's just doing a little dripping now. I almost have the majority of it out, which I do now. I'll dump it in here just so you can see how nasty and black. Definitely needed to be replaced. And cool, we get to use our kit, our crush washer kit again. And we have an exact match. And there you go. This is the 3rd time I've used this kit. No problem. Next, we're going to replace that filter, and as you can see, I've removed partially the 3 bolts that hold on the cover. There's going to be some oil that's going to leak down. Just let it leak all the way out before removing the cover. And then once you do, the actual filter is a little tough to get out with your hands. Of course, there's a little bit of oil on it. Just use a small flathead screwdriver, and then that'll get behind there for you to pull it out. And then just wipe up whatever little mess is still lingering at the bottom. Which I was surprised at how much oil came out. Inside there is an O-ring that you need to inspect, as well as this O-ring right here. Both of mine look perfectly fine. There was no reason to replace them. This is the old compared to the new. Definitely worth replacing. Didn't cost that much money, and very simple to do. Bike deserves it. Alright, we got the new filter in place. We're just going to torque down these 3 bolts. And then we are going to replace one more part. And it's on the other side of the bike, and it is our oil strainer, which is right here. And in order to get access to the oil strainer, there is a bolt right here that you need to remove. And when you use, I believe it's a 19 millimeter wrench, and then the rest of the way just start to unscrew it. And there's going to be more oil that's going to come out of here, so be prepared. Have your pan underneath, and you'll see that there you go. So after you replace this, you're going to inspect it first, then you're going to put the new strainer in place. Keep in mind that in the service manual it even tells you need to replace the full 1.7 quarts of oil if you replace the strainer as well as that filter. So keep that in mind when you go to put the new oil in, that you are going to have to replace the whole amount. And I've already cleaned this out, but I wanted you to see the old one again. And I'll put the new one on. And that's all you have to do is put it in place just like that. And then just put it right back on the bike. Very simple to do. And you might as well replace it since it's very inexpensive. You can go ahead and clean it with some air, but I just figured it's cheap, why not just replace it. And now we're ready to put the new oil in. And of course I'm putting Yamaha oil, Yamalube in, 20W50. But wait a minute, that's not what's recommended in the service manual, you might say. Well, I spoke to my Yamaha dealer and they stated, since we live in Texas, it gets really hot here for long periods of time. And they recommended that I put in that oil instead, the 20W50, just because it could be 100 degrees for 30 days in a row. But you're going to put in the full 1.8 quarts because you removed the filter and lost that little bit of oil here or there. And looks nice and clean. Looks like definitely we got it all nice and cleaned out. And you can see all the nastiness that was in this old strainer. No big deal. I'll just get rid of it. It doesn't look like it should have stayed in the bike. Alright, well this is just going to end up in the circular file on the floor. Our pizza pointer's back and it's showing us what's coming soon. We got to take care of the oil in the final drive. We got to take our transmission cover off. Lots to inspect and replace some parts in there as well. We have a very simple replacement of a spark plug. I'll show you that. We've got our .4 fluid. Very important to take care of your braking system. This is a 13, 14-year-old bike. And there's going to be some other stuff as well. But if you like my videos, please subscribe. And please give me a thumbs up if you do. If you don't like my videos or my pizza pointer, then don't watch. I don't care if you do or not. But these are entertaining for me to make, so I hope you do like them. And if that is a fact and you do, then hit the notification button and you'll see volume 3 soon. Alright, that's all. See you then.